Wow, over 50 perfect scores. This game's gotta be good, right? Hi, Chibi Neko here, and last week my husband and I finished playing Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. But I wanted to wait a while to unpack the experience because there's a lot, especially when it comes to certain plot points and the ending. So I will be getting into those, but rest assured I will have a spoiler warning. So once you get to that point, you can stop the video and you can come back once you finish playing the game yourself. So first, I want to start off with the good stuff because there's actually quite a bit. This game looks and sounds amazing. It's exactly what you'd expect from Square Enix. Regarding the combat, is essentially the same thing as in Remake, but with one additional feature called Synergy. So as you learn more skills, you can have two characters team up and do a combo attack, which is pretty cool. It adds to the visuals, the strong attacks, and it kind of depends on what two characters you pick to do the attack. There's also additional perks. Sometimes the synergy ability changes your ATB bar to give 3 segments. So it's easier to do some of the stronger attacks involving the ATB bar. Characters, they have different strengths and weaknesses, like Barrett, he is slower, but he's stronger, do long range attacks. Very useful. Yuffie, where she's so much smaller, and Red 13, they're super quick, very useful party members. You can just customize your team to their strengths and weaknesses. If there is one complaint I have, it's the limit break. Just like the first game Remake, you can't carry them over. I don't understand why. There'd be times that my limit gauge would fill up while I'm battling a weaker enemy, and I would like to be able to save my limit break to carry it over to a stronger battle, like a boss battle, but you can't. And I don't know why. I think this would be a really neat feature. You could always do it in the original game, but not in Remake or Rebirth, and I hope they change that for the third installment. So it's just a nitpick, but I would really love to be able to carry my limit breaks over. Because we're outside of Midgar in Rebirth, we now have the open world, and to me the open world is pretty good. At least it is to me. Now, I have not played a lot of games with an open world of this size. 16 kind of had an open world, kind of. 15 did. That was a massive open world, so I think it's fine. Now, all of you veterans of open world games may feel that Rebirth leaves something more to be desired, so make it as you will. However, I will say the best part of this open world is the quick travel. This quality of life feature I think is essentially a staple now in games like this, because even with most of transportation like chocobos and Doom Buggy, traveling a world this size can take a long time. So when you're doing side quests and missions, the fast travel is a godsend. We played through Star Ocean Remake, the remaster, and that fast travel feature, loved it. So yeah, I'm sure this is standard in all open world games up to this point, I think. For the most part, the main story beats are intact. After the ending of Remake, it got a lot of us guessing if there would be any major changes to the plot. And there are some, but main beats like Junon, Costa del Sol, Gongaga, Cosmo Canyon, and Nibelheim, they're all there, each location with an extended story. Some don't make sense, but I'll go further into that in the spoiler section. Another neat feature I like in Rebirth is the Bonds of Friendship system. It's essentially the same thing as the OG Final Fantasy VII, but you get more options to develop your relationship with your teammates, and there are visual cues to show how close you are to them. Now, this is purely just to see who you're going on a date with in the Gold Saucer, but this system makes it a little easier to focus on your choice. The best part is, even if you don't end up on the date with the person you want, you can still choose that person after you beat the game. So for all you Tifa fans who did your best to woo her but still got Aerith, you'll get a second chance. But why would you? Come on, the choice is clear. It's Barrett, okay? It's Barrett. It's Barrett. I mean, all the man wants is a friend. I will say this though, if you don't really care on who you choose for Cloud the Romance, I recommend Aerith, primarily because it will add way more weight and impact to the last few hours of the game. So having said all of these positive things about Final Fantasy VII, it's truly deserving of all those perfect review scores. Except it's not. This game has flaws. Big flaws. And I know there are some hardcore Final Fantasy VII fans who are going to hate me for this, because as we know, this franchise can do no wrong. This has to be said. While Rebirth is a great game, I do think it's overrated. So the first problem I have with Rebirth, this little shit is back. Oh, and he's not alone either. We now have this twat. These two were created as a means to force the player into exploring the open world. Like we're not capable of doing that ourselves? Padding to force location exploration is thrusted upon you too, like locate the 3 whatevers in order to continue a main story beat. All Chibi does is make you look for towers to activate and Mako fountains to scan. Mai, however, wants you to search out certain enemies and complete objectives during battles with them, all while explaining what the species is and how they live. Is this Final Fantasy or the goddamn National Geographic Channel? It's kind of like when you're 6 years old, you're coming home from school, eager to eat cookies and watch some brain-rotting cartoons, only for the cartoon you're watching is suddenly lecturing you on how politics work, or how coal is processed. This is just homework masquerading as gameplay. It's tedious, it's boring, it's side quest padding, and anyone who knows me well knows I can't stand side quest padding! Now, I have participated in some Facebook and YouTube conversations about the side content, and when I mentioned the padding, I got a lot of pushback from fans saying things like, play the game, you learn so much more about the characters and the lore. Well, I can't believe I have to do this, but I think it's time for me to explain the difference between padding and expansion. Expansion is when a side quest or extended story beat adds to the main narrative, like going into a character's background or exploring the history of the story location in more detail. Rebirth does indeed have optional conversations and locations you can go to that allows you to learn more about your main characters or what is going on in the world around them. Padding, on the other hand, is when game devs add content for the sole purpose of extending the length of the game itself. Remake was about 60% padding because it took a segment of the OG game that was only about a few hours long and made it into its own 30-hour length RPG. The complaints were so bad that Square committed themselves into making meaningful content for Rebirth that it will fill the game with character and story development. However, what we got in Rebirth was just as bad, if not worse, in some places. Chibi and Mai are the first culprits, but those two are technically optional. However, there are mandatory minigames that make the experience a chore. The stealth quests to get chocobos were what I hated the most. The OG Final Fantasy VII had minigames, but only the motorcycle was critical. You could still fail the Shinra Parade and snowboarding with minimal consequences. Take Queen's Blood. It's a card game that was added for more content, which is fine if it was optional. At some point in the main story, you have to play this game in a tournament. This screamed PTSD to Final Fantasy IX when you had to win a competition in order to progress in the story. I did not give a shit about that card game, so I did not bother to learn. I just threw cards down blindly until I won. I wasted hours. Now, I don't know if you have to win the tournament in Rebirth, but my husband played that part of the game and he didn't lose, so I guess I'll never know. While exploration is often the biggest highlights of RPGs, the dungeons in Rebirth are much, much longer. And some of that length is contributed by solving puzzles by using a character's skill. Again, which is fine if those skills are enjoyable, but not all of them are. The one I hated the most was playing as Kate Sith in Nibelheim. Aiming and throwing boxes at buttons is not my idea of a fun time. Another dungeon that irritated me was the reactor in Gongaga. Rather than have the whole party with you and split into 2 groups to solve the puzzles together, you have to do that whole dungeon twice, as separate parties. Gotta add those 2 extra hours to the game, I guess. The dungeon that brought length to absurd levels would be the Temple of the Ancients. It was around 9 o'clock in the evening. I figured, okay, I'll just beat this dungeon before going to bed. 4 hours later, I got so tired I had to hand the controller over to my husband, who played it for about 2 hours before handing the controller back to me until I finished the rest of it. It's not a difficult dungeon. The puzzles and the bosses are quite easy, and we were playing on normal mode. The dungeon really is that goddamn long. Oh, and let's talk about boss fights. Because there are so many boss fights. Why give Square? Every 30 minutes or so, there's a boss fight. Some disappear with no rhyme or reason. Rose shows up out of nowhere once you leave the Shinra Manor. I don't know why? Look, you're gay for Cloud. I get it. Leave us alone. Oh, and don't get me started with the boss gauntlets. It's a good thing you can save anywhere and restart your fight from the current battle. Otherwise, I would have to say this is a frustrating experience. The rest of the side quests revolve around fetching and monster hunts, and they still don't add anything to the narrative. In fact, some of the quests were so bad, my husband came close to throwing the controller in frustration. Doing monster hunts was the only padded side content that kind of made sense for the world you're living in. It's lazy, but it's kind of the work that a mercenary for hire would do. Now, some side quests can be done to increase the relationship you have with your teammates. These I don't mind. I will put them in the expansion category because you are interacting with other characters and learning more about them. So now I will be going into spoiler territory. I will be talking briefly about some of the story changes and going into the ending. So stop this video now if you have not finished playing Rebirth. Still here? All right, here we go. The first story change I felt to be odd was in Gongaga. In the OG Final Fantasy VII, it was a brief stop where you learned about Zack and see Aerith and Tifa's reaction over his name being mentioned. However, thanks to the events of Crisis Core, it was natural to get this area expanded on. What I don't quite get is the scene where Tifa falls into the life stream, gets eaten by a weapon, and floats around in its materia belly. Which sounds pretty silly when I say that out loud. She then goes on to have her life stream memory lane walkabout, which is strange? I mean, this scene was supposed to happen much later in the story with Cloud being present, so I guess they're going to do something different in regards to recovering his memory? After seeing the ending, I'm pretty sure that's going to be the case. Another odd aspect is there is no Rocket Town. Instead, you meet Sid via his flight service to travel long distances, and he also knew Aerith's biological mother. He, along with Vincent, do join you, but you don't get to play as them, which was disappointing because I was really looking forward to it. The story beats I looked forward to the most was actually Zack in a new timeline that was created by defeating the Arbiters of Fate at the end of Remake. Zack is alive and brings Cloud back to Midgar, only to find the members of Avalanche being taken away by Shinra. He is able to save Aerith, and now he has both Cloud and Aerith under his care. This is where things get convoluted, and on that note, let's go to the ending. So thanks to the events of Remake, we have two timelines. The main one in which Cloud and company are going through the journey as normal, and the other one in which Zack is alive and is now taking care of an unconscious Cloud and Aerith. There are two ways to distinguish the difference between these timelines. The Sky, in which has a tear in Zack's timeline, and the Shinra military mascot Stamp. These dogs are the best means of deciphering what reality we are witnessing. The main reality has a beagle, and Zack's has a terrier. After Remake and the defeat of the Arbiters of Fate, Aerith and Red both lose their memories of the future, and the white materia became clear. After Cloud and Aerith's fall from the Temple of the Ancients, we see them both awake in a new reality where a different destiny was chosen because we see Stamp as a husky. In this reality, Aerith has an active white materia. She gives it to Cloud so that he could in turn give it to Aerith in his reality. But while he was in flux between worlds, Sephiroth appears to tell Cloud this.
Behold, the true nature of reality.
He then goes on to say this. When the boundaries of fate are breached, new worlds are born. The planet encompasses a multitude of worlds ever unfolding. Some quickly perish, while others endure. Yet even the most resilient worlds are doomed to fade. Nevertheless, their loss is not to be mourned, for it is not death, but a homecoming that awaits them. And in the planet's embrace, all life is one. So what I gather from this is each time a path is deviated from destiny, a new world is created. And Sephiroth's goal is to merge those worlds together in a reunion in order to destroy them all and become a god. We see this happen when Zack leaves to find help. There are three paths to take. Each choice will lead to a new world being created, and we do see the outcomes of all three. The path that leads to Biggs has Stamp as a pug. The path that leads to Shinra to find help for Cloud still has Stamp as a terrier. The path to help Aerith is likely the world in which Stamp is a husky, where Aerith and Cloud have their date and end up at the church, because Sephiroth slashes Zack and enters the church, in which we can see him as Aerith pushes Cloud back into his reality with her white materia. We also see a white light, so keep this in mind because it's the same white light that flashed when Zack made his first choice. This seems to indicate a new reality is being created. While praying, Aerith states that she isn't sure if she's doing it right because she was never taught. When Cloud deflects Sephiroth's sword, we can see the same white light, so in the new reality, Cloud saved Aerith, while in the main reality, she is killed. This is where we see that Cloud seems to be in flux in both realities. You can see that Aerith is still alive, however, when the rest of the party arrives, the screen statics to their point of view of Aerith being dead. The white materia dropped from both realities, but did not turn green, meaning Aerith did not succeed in summoning Holy. When the party fights Genova, we see that everyone's limit break gauge is full, except for Cloud. He is angry at Sephiroth, but not on the same level as the rest of the party due to the reality that they experienced. In the final boss gauntlet, we have Zack and Aerith join Cloud from their realities to fight Sephiroth. When Zack disappears, we see the same white light as he tells Cloud to save her.
Cloud, save her!
Cloud's behavior, I'm not gonna lie, it's pretty unsettling. While we don't see Aerith's body being placed in a lake, it is implied with only the party being aware of it. Cloud, however, is sitting and content with Aerith at his side. Everyone around him is mourning and they speak in a low, melancholy tone, while Cloud seems upbeat and smiling at an Aerith that they cannot see. To me, Cloud is clearly in flux between two realities. He can see the tear in the sky while no one else can. Red, who has the closest connection to the planet next to the Cetra, can sense Aerith, but can't see her. It's really uncomfortable seeing everyone, especially Tifa, experience such raw emotion while Cloud is all smiles and content when seeing Aerith as though nothing has happened. Because Aerith did not succeed in summoning Holy, she decides to return to the Forgotten Capital to keep trying while Cloud and the others go after Sephiroth. Cloud agrees with her decision and leaves on the tiny Bronco. The one part I can't seem to make up my mind on is the black materia, if the clear materia turned black or if it's a separate orb altogether. Cloud's subtle movements looks like he found a separate orb, and maybe the clear materia will turn into a second white materia? Better chances for Aerith to summon Holy, I guess? Who knows? But anyway, that is my review of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I had to watch the ending and key points of the story numerous times to come up with that analysis of the ending. After all, it is done in pure Nomura fashion. After all, you don't get the full story with the first recitement. But I am looking forward to the third game, and hopefully they don't repeat these flaws. But anyway, what do you all think of the game? Did you think it was too convoluted, too much padding? Let me know in the comments below. And I got a feeling that the name is going to be Final Fantasy VII Reunion. I'm calling it. This is Chibi Neko signing out.